give me a few minutes to recover. Before I actually do the message, there's just a few things, a few thanks I want to give and a few things I want to point out. So I do want you to know that Miles Curry is taping this because this message will go on YouTube as soon as we're done. So thank you for getting us into the 21st century, Miles. That's really great. And then I also want to make a special point to thank Brett and all of the staff from our finance office, because putting this together is really mainly on their shoulders, and they've done an extraordinary job, and they've been working long and hard hours. I want you all to know I really appreciate that. And then I think I have some extra thanks just over the last year, because as you all know, we cut $15.5 million last year. I've been in education over 35 years. I've never heard a figure like that before when we talked about budget cuts coming so late in the year. And so first I really do want to thank the associations and the board and the budget committee and the leadership team on the work we did together to do the best we could to still provide a quality education to our students and make sure we're achieving the vision, every student and graduate prepared for a bright, successful future. So that's kind of like a communal thanks, because I think we were as successful as we could have been because of all of those groups of people working together. So I really do appreciate it. But that brings us, and I just can't believe here we are again, you know, looking at the 210-211 budget. So I do want to start by talking about what we're going to see in this 210 and 11 budget. And again, I do want to repeat that this was, so if you get to your budget message, I'm just, you know, my idea is not to read, it's to sort of be in conversation. So, but again, the figure we were faced with last year was $15.5 million to reduce. And in doing those reductions, what we did find is that 20 classified staff members were laid off and 40 teaching positions were eliminated. We were able to manage those through attrition, but the reality is we had to say goodbye to some pretty important people, and the end result is much less staff in our school system to educate our students. So it feels good to know that this year we're not looking at cuts of that magnitude, but the other thing we do need to be very much aware of the next biennium is a biennium that feels pretty scary to many of us. And you know, there's you've heard figures like 2.5 billion at the state level, and then we've also heard some better scenarios. But what we know is it could be a very rough time, and we're very responsible to keep looking at all of the things. And as you hear Brett get into the budget, you'll see some things that we have done in this coming year's budget to help us think about the possibilities that could be happening in the next biennium. So that certainly will be part of the work today. In the second paragraph, I did write a bit about the process we used last year, that we were written up in Education Northwest, an example of a district who worked effectively in managing through what was the biggest economic crisis, educational crisis we've experienced in a long time. And also to talk about the challenges that lay ahead. And one thing we want to do is we know that unemployment still hovers around 10% in Lane County. That's a big figure. And in addition to that, there's PERS concerns. You know, we could be seeing an increase between 6 and 8%. And I actually introduced myself to some people in the audience, and just in a small dialogue, there's other people besides us, people in the audience who share that concern about the PERS. So it's something very real that we need to look into. That could represent about $3 million to us. And as you start looking at the budget, what you're going to be seeing is you know, any increase you have in the budget really gets offset by expenses, and then some of these things that could possibly happen. And $3 million is a lot of money, you know, at this time. In addition to that, we know partly what came to us to make us manage the financial crisis the best we could was the money we got from the federal government, the ARA money. But what we also know is that resource could go away. We don't know yet. You know, what you're hearing is that President Obama might try to put that back in. We're hearing mixed things from the Hill, really, about it. But we know that represents about $900,000 that if it doesn't get replaced, it would no longer be there, and we do have staff. We're maintaining staff. That $900,000, a lot of it went to fund actual staff. So that's a big worry. So, you know, I'm a worrier by nature, but these things allow me to even worry a little bit more. So, and I know I'm not worrying alone, right? I just think it's important to point out. In addition to that, we, like so many other districts in Oregon, this is definitely a trend in Oregon, are experiencing reduction in enrollment. And it was funny because when I came to the district, I used to say we're a district of 11,000 students. I mean, that's what we always said. The truth is we're a district of 10,500 students right now. So from the time I came, and this is my 7th year to now, we've lost over 500 students, and our per student allocation is about how much, Brett? About 6,000. So do the math on that, that's substantial. And of course, decrease in enrollment, what's always tricky about it is, you know, it's not like 25, the kids don't say, oh, we know you're gonna have a decrease in enrollment. We'll take 25 kids from, just won't show up at Ridgeview. You know, it's like 3 don't show up at this school, and 3 don't show up at that school, and 3 don't show up at that school. So you have to adjust for enrollment, which means you have to make adjustments in your staffing, but it's very tricky because it's spread throughout the district in our 26 buildings and throughout our grade levels. So there's a lot of complications related to that. So I do know as we move through the year, every position that becomes available, we take a look at and say could there be a savings here. And one place we did that was what we did with at Springfield High School. When Carmen Gilman became the principal, we moved Chris Mitchell from Springfield Middle School to be the assistant principal, and we did not replace his position with an administrator. So I think we've got to be very careful every time something opens to look at how are we going to see if there's a possibility to make a reduction or some changes and stuff. So, and Brett will get into more detail just about the declining enrollment and the impact that actually has on our staffing. So you'll be hearing from him later about that. Of course, we're all sitting around this table because we care so deeply for Springfield kids or kids in general. So even though we face these challenges, what I want you to know is most of our energy goes to making sure we achieve our vision, every student and graduate prepared for a bright and successful future. So at the same time we cut $15.5 million, we also implemented a new instructional model which was necessary in bold, and that model was our RTI community model. I want to remind you again that the rates of graduation of our special ed students were about 20 percentage points below our neighboring school districts. We knew that we must not be using the right model. The model we were using was getting more costly and we weren't seeing the results. So we wanted to shift to something that we would make sure would help improve success of all kids, including our special ed kids. And that's what we did with RTI and community model. I think you've all heard of the implementation dip. Usually when you implement something new, things get a little worse before they get better. And we certainly have experienced a little bit of a dip with RTI community model, but we've also provided tremendous amounts of staff development, and we're going to need to provide even more. And you will see in our coming budget that will be a priority.